talking about Berlin iron. So what is that? Basically, it's a form of cast iron jewelry. So it's not something that we commonly see as jewelry, but because it's not a precious metal in any way, usually cast iron is seen more for, you know, making machines and things like that. However, we're going to show why there's a specific time period from the early 1800s to mid-19th century of why it became a popular jewelry trend. So Berlin ironwork jewelry is a unique, delicate jewelry that was born of technological innovation, patriotism, and the necessity at the turn of the 19th century. So originating in Berlin, which was then part of the Kingdom of Prussia, Berlin iron was the name given to cast iron jewelry produced by the Prussian Royal Iron Foundries. So this was primarily within the years of 1806 all the way up to mid-19th century. So cast iron is an iron-carbon alloy with a carbon content of more than 2%. It's generally used for industrial production, so it's more for like machinery construction. It was not something that we've seen in jewelry because cast iron was simply too brittle, especially for something that's delicate like fine jewelry, and definitely unmalleable as well. And so because of that, it wasn't something that was used for jewelry because it could just break at any point. So in the late 18th century, Prince Rupert of the Rhine developed a new casting method, which we will touch in a second, but this wasn't actually the reasons why cast iron jewelry became a trend. So to explain why it became so popular in the first place was actually because you have to understand the political climate of Europe in the 19th century. Let's bring in Napoleon! Alright, so following the French Revolution in 1789 and the progressive rise to power of Napoleon in 1799, Europe was in a state of constant warfare. The Kingdom of Prussia waged several wars against Napoleon during this period. In 1806, Prussia was defeated and Berlin was now occupied by Napoleon. So then much of Berlin's manufacturing capabilities were actually stripped and moved to Paris, and the kingdom severely lacked funds to maintain its army and industries. So basically Napoleon went in, won the war, stripped them of everything so that they couldn't retaliate. So basically what that movement made was that all of these Prussians were now giving up their jewelry to the government in order to finance the future war. So they were giving their gold as basically money, and in exchange the government actually started to give them back iron jewelry. So many people actually gave in their jewelry as a form of patriotism. In Berlin alone, over 160,000 rings were collected for the war effort. Like, so cool! Many of the ironwork pieces they did receive in return had gold gab each for Eisen, meaning I gave gold for iron, inscribed onto the back of their jewelry. Berlin ironwork remained in fashion until the mid-1830s, but would continue to be produced throughout the century. One of the main reasons cast iron was never used for jewelry, like mentioned before, it was very fragile. However, in the late 18th century, Prince Rupert of Rhine developed a new casting process called Blackheart Casting. So by protecting the castings from oxidization during the heating treatment, Blackheart cast iron became more malleable than white-heart cast iron because it had a higher silicone content and a lower carbon content, which meant that the cast could become more delicate and more detailed. So later on, English metalsmiths would actually go on to further refine the process by using pulverized and refined sand. Basically, they would create molds that the cast iron would flow into, and in doing so, it allowed them to have more detailed casts. They also added phosphorus to the iron, which improved this malleability. So in order to get to this point where they could have iron jewelry, there was a lot of innovation on the technical side of things to accomplish that. However, it's not something that we would have seen necessarily if people hadn't had the patriotism that they had. If the political situation hadn't been the same, then I don't think that it probably would have necessarily ended up as jewelry. I don't think I know any actual jewelers who still use cast iron for jewelry. I'm sure it can still be found. A lot of the jewelry that we see from that period, it has a very ornate, very vintage aesthetic to it. It's very detailed. I don't think it's something that we would necessarily be on trend today, because today it tends to be a little bit more minimal. However, I think it is still very, very cool, and I think it represents a very big part of history because these people were literally funding war with their jewelry. Like, I think that's really cool. Alright guys, thanks for watching. If you like it, obviously hit the like button, subscribe if you want to see more. Let us know what videos you guys would like us to touch on next, and we'll see you next time. Bye!